Have fun. See ya. Enjoy. Enjoy.
Just sit down. Hey, good seeing you. Have a seat. Interesting topic, and one topic that the Nordics are often associated with is bringing products international. And as Dan just said, there's a reason for that. And as we all know, IKEA, Lego, Spotify are all common brands, but they all started in the Nordics. So I would like to start by asking Jacob. Jacob, iZettle, you run your company across 3 continents, I think it is. Hundreds of millions of transaction volume every month. And what is it that you think why the Nordics are so successful in bringing their products international?
Well, I think the fact that most Nordic markets individually, they're so small. I mean, only comparing Stockholm to Munich, we're 1 million people and we think we're a big city, right? So we didn't have much of a choice, basically since day one, from the Vikings and up until today. And I think, at the time of ABBA, we actually realized that speaking English is a pretty good thing. So that's really when sort of the export started exploding. So we need to, our home markets are really good when it comes to trying out new products. Sweden is a fantastic test bed for everything from technology to fashion. But in order for us to find scalability, we need to go abroad. So we're forced to leave the comfortable sort of home turf and then try our wings elsewhere.
Makes complete sense.
I totally agree, and you probably can look at our history as well. So at least from Denmark's point of view, no natural resources historically, so we were traders. We were traded with the north, with the Swedes, we were trading the south with the Germans. So there's a tradition culturally that you have to look above your own borders from more or less day one when you build your business plan.
I could just add on that, especially from like Finnish perspective, we're a nation with people of 5 million who speak our language, so you can't really do anything with the Finnish, so.
That's true. Yeah, so my experience from living in Sweden is that everyone speaks perfect English, right? I guess that helps as well, René. Is that the same in Denmark, or?
Yeah, it's. I mean, my generation, we were forced to speak German from 2nd grade and English from 1st grade, right? That has changed now. Now I think it's mainly focused on English at school. Already in I think you call it kindergarten. So in nursery school, you already start with English. So of course, it's so important when you have 5-6 million people speaking your language.
And I think that's actually one of the bigger success factors today. I mean, we're. If you compare Sweden again to Germany, do you guys still dub your movies and TV shows and everything in German?
We don't.
You have
we
the
don't.
sort of Bruce Willis German voice?
Yeah, they are in German mostly.
So in Sweden they're not dubbed. And I think that's actually, it's a good way of helping out to kind of force yourself to think more globally, to have sort of access to the English language since day one.
Yeah, perfect. So Marianne, you're running Slush, which is originally started in Helsinki, and you told me that at peak times you're responsible for 2,500 people, bringing 20,000 all over the world together. But not only that, you're running now offices in mainland China and in Southeast Asia, and on top of that, you're having satellite events from Jamaica to Nepal. So I think it's fair to say that you're a true global entrepreneur here. But of course, things looks always shiny on the outside, but there are things that can go wrong, as we all know. Is it fair if I ask you to share some of the things that might not have gone so well on your endeavor here?
Definitely. One of the key learnings for us, starting from just internal, both culture and communication, were that someone needs to really own them. So both like spend a lot of time and effort when finding the people that they are culture fits and they're like ambassadors for that locally. But then also not just ambassadors, but also kind of they own it, so they react if something's not right. And also communication-wise, it's great that you have, or we have, weekly internal communication. But again, we need to have someone who actually owns it and develops it further. so it just doesn't like fade away.
And you didn't do that in the beginning, and that led to complications, or what was the learning process behind
Yeah, for
that?
sure. So starting from like people conflicts or simply actually decision making just getting a lot slower, because a lot of our decision making, or that probably applies to most of the startups, is according to the cultures. You know, if here's our culture, you can make the decisions based on that. As long as you act according to the culture, you're doing the right thing. And we had it kind of there, but we should have it even like more clearly black on white on paper.
Makes sense. Jacob, anything you can share on the mistakes along the path to success?
There are so many, I don't know where to start. But I think, you know, the ambition to grow globally and put your company in sort of a hyper-growth situation, if you start off from the Swedish market, kind of forces you to be pretty fast. And that creates a lot of sort of situations for mistakes. And, you know, to generalize quite a lot, I mean, we started in Sweden with iZettle, a sort of mobile payments company at the time. And Sweden is probably one of the more advanced sort of cashless societies in the world. And then forcing ourselves really, really rapidly to Germany, because we saw the Rocket Brothers sort of setting up their business here, realizing that shit, Germany is still, they love cash. You guys love cash. You don't, some of you don't even know what a credit card is. I'm kidding, okay? No, but, and then going to Italy, saying that we need to expand to Italy, realizing that the Italians don't want to pay their taxes, so they don't want to transact with cards either. So, I mean, there are mistakes all the time because of things that you do because you think you are in a hurry. So those are just a few examples.
And if you look at the other continents, if you look at these mistakes, so something that is different between doing business in South America that you should have avoided, maybe?
I'm not sure if we have our bigger operations are in Sao Paulo and in Mexico City, and then we're in Europe. And I think just the fact that you need to have a global aspiration when you set up a sort of business now, but still you need to kind of act very local. But as René, you actually said before we walked in here, even though you need to act local, you need to make sure that you don't change too much of your business because your local country manager wants to do it this way because that's the way we do it in Germany. Because in general, we're pretty similar, but you need the local touch.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. René, you're bridging communications between London and LA for Disney now. What is it that in a bigger company, once you sold your startup, and we're coming to your background in a second, what is it that you wish should be different in such a big organization when it comes to internationalization? Because we obviously hope that some of the entrepreneurs here in the audience will build a company as successful as Disney wants. So maybe in advance, what is it that you guys are struggling with or not good with that you can share?
So the company I sold to Disney or Disney in itself?
We're coming to
I
that
can't
company.
comment on Disney. I mean, it's the greatest company in the world when it comes to entertainment. I will not comment on that.
Okay.
And it's a truly global company, right,
Yeah.
with 250,000 employees.
But before you became head of Ninja at Disney, you sold Maker Studios to the company quite successfully. Maybe you can share some of the learnings there, because Maker Studio was based in LA, or is based in LA as well. But you were in between London and LA. Maybe you can share some of your insights there.
I think there's lots of insights, but in this context, I think when you build a business like Maker Studios, which was a movement rather than a business, it was a global platform of democratizing creativity, etc. You have to realize that you can't sit in LA and just build a platform for the rest of the world, right? Your audiences, 2/3 of your audiences are outside the US from more or less day one. And when we sold the business, I think 80% of the audience was outside the US, as well as the creators of content. So you need to have a global business. So what we did very quickly, out of LA, we kept kind of the technology and the product. And to your point, we standardize it. No changes anywhere, right? Maybe local adaptations, but no changes to the product. Then we built an international headquarters out of London with back office support, and then a regional headquarter in Singapore for Southeast Asia. And then the plan was to build another one in Japan, but we never came so far. We got acquired. So I think what was very important was that we realized where our audience, where they were, and therefore we built a business around that.
Oh, that makes complete sense. Before you were president at Maker Studio and then later Disney, actually, Jacob, when you share a history that you guys were both working for Trade Doubler in the early 2000s before it IPO'd, and I think René left.
We were both there before we raised any money.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember.
Greenfield.
So that company also went international, and then later you sold Go Viral to AOL, became their global head of video advertisement. So I think it's fair to say that you have quite an experience of running business international. So some of the people in the audience are younger startup entrepreneurs, and obviously I always hate when I go from a conference and haven't had a good takeaway from these panels. So something crisp, something that you have learned of all these years that you can give as advice and as a takeaway, things to a tool set type of hint you can share with the audience.
Sure. I mean, I think that the fact that if you already have taken your step to become an entrepreneur, that's the biggest risk you can do, right? So then, if I can say it in a nice way, I can say it in a bad way, but if you then pack your suitcases, right, and sell your comfortable two-bed flat in Munich or Frankfurt or wherever you are, and move to Silicon Valley or LA or wherever the big market is, that's the biggest advice I can get, right? It increases the value of your company, of your whole business from day one, right? It's very difficult when you live in Northern Europe to give away your comfortable life. You know, we stop university and right away we have a nice flat and it's just do it. Just do it, right? And don't look back.
I think, Jacob, you have a different opinion
Well,
on that
I'm one of the
topic.
guys who's still living in my comfortable life in Stockholm. So
I know.
I'm your complete opposite. But I tend to agree with you, but with a slight twist. I mean, we built our operations and our headquarters in Stockholm, and even though we see ourselves as an international company, still, so the majority of engineering and finance, etc., is in Stockholm. But I think we never had, since day one, and that might change going forward, but we never had a US agenda. So for that reason, for me to move to LA or to San Francisco or whatever, I might move to London where that would make sense. But actually, if you look at Sweden, probably more so than Denmark and Finland at the moment, it's probably changing. We have a fantastic ecosystem in Stockholm with, you know, by now fairly seasoned entrepreneurs. We have what we call the Bjorn Borg effect. Sweden is so small so that if you have one superstar like Oliver Kahn, everyone tends to, you know, become the next, the next generation all becomes soccer players, right? And the same thing goes for entrepreneurship. So right now we have, you know, enough venture capital and early stage capital. We have lots of seasoned entrepreneurs. We have a fantastic ecosystem with venture capital, universities, etc. So, you know, it doesn't always make sense to get away from your comfortable home turf. I think it could also give you advantages. Maybe if you're from Denmark, maybe that makes sense.
Yeah, there's some rivalry, obviously. So it's okay that you hate on René, because I know you guys are friends for a long time. But then again, what is it that you can give to the German entrepreneurs that they should take away from your learning? Is it that if you don't go to the US, it's okay to stay at home? Because I know Marianne is on the same page here as well. But first to you, Jacob.
No, I think my point is really, no matter what kind of company you build, you still need to prove your concept in your local market. And in my opinion, there is no better chance to prove your concept in a market that you actually know. You know all the sort of the cultural aspects and the differences and the twists and tweaks that you need to do to your product or whatever it might be. So if you're not succeeding in sort of starting in Munich, if you start your company in Munich, and if you're not succeeding then afterwards in Germany, why the hell would you make it in LA, sort of in the US? It doesn't really make sense for me. So prove your concept, dig where you stand basically.
Yeah.
I think the difference when you come from France, Germany, or the UK compared to the countries we are from, that your home market is so big that you tend to, if you're successful in your home market, not to take that step and go further. And historically, that has also been the case, right? We never had that option. So I think one of the things I see, especially out of London, very few of the UK companies actually have that global ambition from day one. And I think there's the same trend here in Germany. So I think that ambition should be there, right? We have no choice.
Yeah,
but you have a choice.
Oh, that's a fair
And I think we discussed a few days ago when you called me that we also have a tendency to look at, you know, the company next door as your competitor, but that's not true anymore. Your competitors are from everywhere in the world, in particular from the US and from China these days, right? So that's your competition. So sometimes it is very good to go and play in offense rather than in defense.
Yeah, it's never been easier to put up a company, right, than today. And maybe our learning from that would have been simply just, you know, try out. It's also never been easier to just try out, gather data, and figure out whether it works or not. And then maybe actually a third learning would have been that once you have the data, if something doesn't work, be also courageous enough to just shut it down. It doesn't make sense to keep on doing something that's just burning the money.
Fair point, fair point. Yeah, guys, thanks for sharing these insights. And I think it is fair to say that we as Germans, there's a good way to learn from you guys when it comes to internationalization. And I'm pretty sure that many of the entrepreneurs of the latest generation in Berlin or in Germany in general already look outside the border to run their business internationally. Guys, thanks so much for sharing the insights on running your business globally. So guys, give it up for these three guys.